Relentless Grind, number 5. Bit different this one. Sunday afternoon beer with Nick Dametto.
Nice to see you, Scotty.
Good mate. Federal member for Hinchinbrook.
State member. Don't put me in that bucket of chips just yet.
Sorry, mate. For the Qatar Australia Party. Going to have a bit of a yarn about life in the north and what's going on around the place and things that have been happening and all sorts of cool shit. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, cheers, Scotty. Nice to be here on a Sunday.
Yeah, beer's cold, so that's all good. Mate, I wanted to talk to you a bit about your progression into where you sort of got to how you are now. Like, we just had a bit of a talk about it before. You started off as a tradesman.
Yeah, mate. I'll give you a quick rundown of my background. So, grew up in a small little town north of Townsville called Ingham. Grew up on a little sugarcane farm and did my time at the sugar mill up there in Ingham at Victoria Mill when CSR still owned it.
Yeah.
Fitter boilermaker by trade, and I tell you what, anyone that's done a dual trade as a fitter boilermaker will come out and say I'm either a fitter or a boilermaker. There's way too much to learn in either trade to try and say you're an expert in any, and if you're you say you are, you're definitely pulling yourself. Mate, the ink wasn't even dry on my trade certificate, and I threw my hat in the ring with the mining industry about 2005. Got into just doing shutdowns, pretty much the same way everyone gets into the mining industry, and did hard rock mining in North Queensland. And I ended up getting a phone call from a mate asking if I wanted to come and do another apprenticeship in Townsville here. There's a company called Hayden, that did refrigeration in town here. So decided why not try another dual trade. So I was going to do electrical and refrigeration, maybe a little bit cleaner, get out of the dirt a little bit, get away from the grease. Yeah. And then decided to give that a crack, and everything was going sweet. Then the GFC hit about 2008. Ended up back in the mining industry because I lost my apprenticeship because the company shut down here in Townsville. Yeah. But finished up over in WA, did a bit of time over there doing construction, 4 weeks on, 1 week off, for a company called Goodline. Then I decided would have been about 3 years ago, wanted to get out on the water. Wanted to. My dad used to have game boats when we were growing up. I wanted to share our North Queensland way of life with people visiting our city. So I started my own small business, Townsville Water Sports. We're doing jet ski tours out of the Breakwater Marina, Scotty. And would have been about the end of last year. Got a phone call from the Honourable Bob Catter out of the blue, asking if I'd like to run for politics, and yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, and here we are today.
Definitely.
Wow, that's a bit of a roller coaster ride for a young lad from Ingham to sort of get, like, it's not very sort of common for a tradesman to end up in politics, but it's probably a really good thing to have happen, especially in a regional centre like us, because you're a grassroots guy. Like you've seen it from the bottom, and now you're sort of at the top where you're trying to make a change to help everyone.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess even when I was working as a tradesperson or any other role that I sort of worked in, Scotty, that I used to hate being told to do something from someone that's never walked in the shoes. It's hard to take the direction of an engineer telling you how to fix a pump, kilometre and a half underground, and they've never been in the mud and done it themselves. And I think when people look at their politicians these days, they don't want people representing them at whether it's the state or federal level that haven't actually lived the life that they've had, or done the hard yards. And I think that's starting to resonate with the kind of people that are starting to be elected as their members.
I think so too. I've noticed that not that I'm really following politics much, but in global politics, there's been a fairly sizable shift in the way people are thinking about what's happening. I know with Donald Trump in the US, that's a huge shift in the way their system sort of, the direction of their country, and I think a lot of it's flowing down, not necessarily we don't have politicians with the same views as him. Some of his stuff's a bit crazy, but I think the general consensus is people are sick of two major parties having a monopoly.
Yep. And
trying to govern a regional centre like ours, and there's plenty all over the country. Most of Australia is a regional centre essentially, and it's been governed by people that don't live in regional centres, so it it doesn't sort of work. The systems,
Yeah.
the amount of people we've got now compared to when the Constitution was written is very, very different. So,
Well, you have a look at Donald Trump, for example, and see what's happening over in the US. Love him or hate him, I think the reason America's doing so well at the moment is because their president is a businessman. The country should be run like a business, if you ask me. You know, unless you can produce something, unless you can create wealth within your own country, then it's not a hard bit of maths to do. You can only have so much money going out as a small business or a big business and not enough coming in for so long before you send yourself broke.
It's essentially right, yeah, exactly. And I think that's why Americans are slowly changing their views on politics. And, you know, I'd probably nearly guess to say that Trump will get another, you know, he'll get another go at it.
Yep,
and it's primarily because, like you say, he's been a businessman, he's made money, and he just puts it down to, he doesn't keep the political correctness in there. He just, if this works, we've got to do that. Well, that's what we have to do. Whether it's,
and whether you're in his cabinet or one of his directors or whatever, you're sacked if you're not pulling your weight.
Unlucky if you don't do the job. Well, step aside. We'll get someone that does. And I think that kind of mentality is something that you know, definitely Queensland and Australia needs to take on board.
Well, you're talking a little earlier about, you know, North Queensland and the southeast corner and how things are sort of being governed here in Queensland at the moment. And no matter it's either side of the major parties, they seem to be pandering to the southeast corner because that's exactly where the votes are. You only have to get a big map of Queensland out and have a look how the electorates are all divided up in Queensland, and you can hardly see where all the lines join and don't meet and all that sort of stuff in the southeast corner on the map because there's so many electorates just wedged right into that southeast corner. That's where the votes are. That's the seats they need to win to govern or rural Queensland. And unfortunately, North Queensland and rural Queensland misses out every time because when the money goes to be spent, it has to be spent in the marginal seats. They don't really worry about places like Mount Isa, Townsville, Charters Towers, those sorts of places. Or even if you have a look up in the Gulf country, those places continuously miss out because they're not seats that need to be won.
That's right. And yeah, it just baffles me the way that, you know, that system seems to be fundamentally flawed, you know. I think there needs to be a change. I know the Katter Party's striving for two Queenslands, a North Queensland and a South Queensland.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something that's got to happen sooner or later.
So,
eventually,
Scott, it's not just our party that's been pushing for a separate state in North Queensland here for a while, but there's also a group called the North Queensland State Alliance. Now, they're a group of business people, everyday hard-working Australians, and some of the political leaders of this state that are banding together to try and find the best way to approach this. How do we separate from the rest of Queensland? How do we start looking after ourselves? Because at the moment, what we're seeing is we're earning most of the money right up here in North Queensland, whether you're in agriculture, whether you're in mining, construction, those sorts of big ticket items and the things that earn Queensland a lot of royalties and pay for all these nice shiny things down in the southeast corner, that money's being generated in North Queensland. And we're not getting our fair share. And when we say our fair share, we don't need another stadium. We don't need you know, this flashy stuff like entertainment and that is needed in the southeast corner. We're talking about nation-building infrastructure. We're talking about dams in North Queensland so we can build our agriculture industry and drought-proof West Queensland. We're talking about rail lines that are actually owned by the Queensland people again. QR used to own a lot of the rail lines. Now we've sold them off.
It's a shame, you know. Like, I suppose I'm a child of the '70s, so I was born in the mid-'70s. But my dad talks about, you know, the era of the '70s when, you know, Australia used to build our own cars and our own lawnmowers and our own Hills hoists, and, you know, even socks and jocks. You know, Bonds was an Australian company, and now we don't even have a manufacturing industry, and it's really sad to see because we made some of the best stuff in the world for a long time.
It was products we could have been proud of, and we were proud of.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're running a town, a city, a country, a small business. If you've got so much money being spent outside and not actually generating anything to pay for that, Well, it's only a matter of time before we go broke. We're going to be in $87 billion worth of debt just in Queensland at the end of this term.
Holy smoke, that's insane, isn't it, really?
And we've got the Treasurer smiling about it.
Yeah, well.
I've got no problem with debt, Scotty.
Yeah.
But you should be getting into good debt.
That's right.
Buy something that's going to appreciate in value or actually generate your money.
Earn money.
Exactly right. Don't just spend it on the fluffy things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it seems to be a lot of fluff getting spent on.
It's like being an apprentice and going to buy a brand new jet ski that's going to be worth nothing in 2 years' time.
That's right.
You probably just blew that cash.
You're better off spending 15 grand on a snap-on toolbox and earning money for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So, as a politician, I mean, obviously.
Geez, I hate that word.
Well, sorry.
But you can call me that for the.
We'll keep it quiet. You're also a bit of a car nut. Got a bit of a toughie and into water sports. Obviously, having a jet ski company and stuff like that. All that stuff is what we do in the north. That's what we all grew up as kids doing. You know, right. we used to play with cars and race them, and you know, legally we had a drag strip here for a lot of years, and we've sort of lost all that. We really deserve, I think, a designated precinct for young people to experience that, you know.
Exactly.
That's something that should have money spent on it rather than, as you call it, fluffy.
Scotty, I grew up on a cane farm, and you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up on a cane farm, but we were into motorsport at a young age. The old man, he built us a go-kart. And the first thing we figured out is how to pull the governor back on that 5 horsepower until we put a leg out of bed.
Yeah.
Gee, she went hard. She was spinning both wheels before she blew up. It was the best probably 45 seconds of my life as a 10-year-old. But, you know, I only grew from there. My love of motorsport, got into dirt bikes, and instead of probably sitting at home doing homework in an afternoon, we were getting in trouble for coming home after dark because we've been running amok somewhere on dirt bikes. And my love of the ocean came from hanging out with the old man and going out on the game boats and working on the game boats and stuff. But after high school, I didn't go to the reef probably for about 8 years because I was just sick of going out and working basically, baiting people's hooks and taking people's fish off their hooks and stuff like that. But I got back in the I was racing motocross. I was just sick of crashing all the time and ended up with gravel rash all over you and waking up stuck to the bed sheets every Monday morning, you know. Yeah. But got back into water sports because I ended up getting rid of the dirt bike and got into ski racing. Yep. So I was a pretty shit-house skier. So I spent more time driving the boat than skiing, and then ended up picking up this Toyota Supra you're talking about a little while ago. Yeah. Picked it up for about $6,000, an absolute song, but I tell you what, it was a mess when I picked it up. And the idea, like most people, is I'm just going to give it a coat of paint and get that motor running and flick it. Yeah. Ended up doing some research and meeting a local mechanic here that sort of told me how much power you can make out of a 2J. And the rest is history.
It all gets out of hand.
I'll put it this way. It's kind of embarrassing how much money you end up spending, but I'd probably own a second property by now. But you're right. We used to have a drag strip here in Townsville. We used to have a motorsport facility where people could get their vehicles off the road. No one wants to be out there hooning. No one likes doing that. People are pushed into hooning and then labelled as car hoons because there's nowhere to use their cars.
That's right.
And people are always going to want to do up their vehicles. People want a hobby. That's what we do here in North Queensland. We don't go and drink cafe lattes down at the coffee shop and talk about kale and things like that. I've actually got a ban on kale at the moment. If it comes out with kale, I'll leave the restaurant. But we need money spent by the... Yeah, we've had some money come through from the federal government that Pauline Hanson won through the last federal election. They've got $5 million to start the motorsport precinct here out at Calcium, which is going to be great. I believe they're going to go into driver training first, a big skid pan, that's the kind of money they're going to spend first. They're looking for another, I think it's about $18 million to actually do the drag strip and the motorsport sort of the racing circuit.
Infrastructure and stuff.
Yeah, exactly right. And that'll get people off the streets, but it's not only about getting people off the streets, it's driver training and it's the economic benefit to the town. Well, we've just seen Targa races up in Cairns in the last week, and thousands of people. You know,
it was packed.
It was packed. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think you know, when you talk about the driver training, we live in a garrison city, like one of the biggest army bases in the country's here. So it stands to reason that the army's going to want to take advantage of driver training, because there's a lot of drivers in the army, a lot of vehicles in the army, and it makes more sense to train. We've
got the emergency services guys heading all the way down south to Brisbane to do their driver training at the moment. You know, and you have a look at Willowbank, for example, in places like Queensland Raceway. You can't book a spot there. They're 12 months booked out every weekend with an event.
That's crazy. And that's what could be happening here.
Exactly right. We could be taking some of that on-flow, that bit of that business up here. I know right now, if I want to take my drag car racing for the weekend, it's a 5-hour drive south or north just to go racing for the weekend. One, it's unsafe having all those vehicles out on the road doing them long hauls. No one wants to be doing that, driving late at night. And two, we could be doing that right here.
And attracting business and you know, the motels benefit, the restaurants benefit, the service stations benefit. Everybody's going to get a piece of the pie.
And you build something here, it's not just the influx of people on a race week, it's every one of those mechanic workshops, it's every one of them tyre dealerships, it's every one of them, you know, aftermarket stores. They're all making money every week while people are, you know, levelling up for the next weekend because they don't want to get beat again.
Well, that's right. Someone loses, and what are we going to spend some money on?
Oh, yeah.
The guy at the local speed
Pride's
shop.
an expensive sport.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And motorsport seems to be, that's the way it happens. You get beaten, well, it's not going to happen again. And
Definitely not.
What are we going to buy, or what are we going to do, or change, or modify so we don't lose again? So
how fast do you want to go? How deep your pocket?
Yeah. The old Mad Max saying, speed's just a question of money. How fast do you want to go? Mate, I know you do a lot of miles travelling now that you're in this game of politics that you're in. You're obviously a guy that likes to stay healthy and sort of look after yourself. Like, do you have a lot of trouble, you know, training and eating right when you're on the road and stuff like that? Look,
Scott, I know what you're saying. You know, and I got into, you know, bodybuilding and weightlifting probably about. It would have been about 2006 I got into it, and competed a couple of times doing bodybuilding and stuff like that. These days, it's been 10 years since I've competed and got on stage, but it's all about, I want to be lifting weights now when I'm 70. I don't want to smash myself to bits like a young fella in the gym, lifting stuff I probably shouldn't have been doing. Now it's all about, you know, feeling good, looking good, and, you know, just feeling healthy. Put it this way, what you put in your mouth, that's your fuel. That's your fuel for your body. So you walk into a service station, and sometimes that's where I've got to eat today. You know, because I'm on the road, I'm doing 300-400 Ks between one meeting to the next. You walk into a service station, well, you have a look at that sausage roll. There's probably not a lot of nutrients in that. But you know what? Take 5 minutes and wait for them to cook you a burger. Lovely ladies at the back in the kitchen will whip you up, you know, a bacon and egg burger. At least that's real meat, real protein, you know. It's just being a little bit savvy. Not sitting there snacking on a packet of chips, you know, there's no nutritional value in that crap.
No, that's right.
What you put in, you get out. And when it comes to me training now, you know, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. If I've got an hour spare, I'll train. If I've had no time all day and it's 9 o'clock and I'm near a gym, I'll pull in there and do a session. It's, you know, if you want to do it, you can do it. You know, they say Barack Obama used to train an hour a day. And that was probably the busiest man in the world, the leader of the free world in his time.
So they have all those facilities down in Canberra and stuff when you're down there?
Well, I had to blow the dust off it, I'll tell you, when I walked into the gym for the first time.
This is where I was going with this. I saw a couple of photos in there, and funnily enough, you're the only dude in there, which is cool if you're the only dude in there because you don't have to wait for anything. But
exactly,
it just makes me wonder, like, you know, all these politicians that have got these high-stress jobs down there, and wonder if they even take health and stuff seriously, if they're not using these facilities that are there for them.
I tell you what, I've only been in politics now for 11 months. I've been going down to Brisbane Parliament for the last 10 months. And I can tell you what, a lot of the people down there, they just do not look after themselves. And some of the people that have been down there for a long time, they look pretty comfortable. See a lot of people drinking. Maybe it's the way they deal with the stress. The way I deal with stress is that hour in the gym. When you've got two 35-kilo dumbbells on top of your chest, and all you've got to think about is pushing them off your chest. Nothing else is going through your head. That's my clarity for the day.
And I think the way technology is evolving and the next generation of kids, I think there's a better culture around health and fitness, and it's because there's information available now. You know, that there's endless information. Whether it's good or bad is also debatable, but there's more information there, and people are now aware that food's got to be real. You know, and you've got to move. You've got to do some kind of exercise to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And it's not just physically looking, you know, like somebody on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. That's kind of irrelevant. You know, it's a lot to do with mental health too. If you're physically in good condition, your mental health will be.
I think it goes hand in hand. You feel better, you carry yourself better, your self-esteem lifts.
That's right.
You know, if you can, you know, you can walk in somewhere and you can hold your shoulders back and you're feeling good about yourself, you can almost walk in and own that room. If you're walking in and you've already felt self-conscious about yourself and you've woken up and looked at yourself in the mirror in the morning, I think it probably carries through the rest of your day. And, you know, people that work out and people that train hard, it doesn't come easy, and they should be proud of themselves. And, you know, I think it's something everyone can have. You know, it's kind of like what my grandfather used to say about good food. You know, the rich people can, you know, drive a lovely car or live in a big mansion, but we can all eat good food. You know, that's something that really, you know, brings us all together as humans.
That's a good
and I see fitness is the same thing. You know, we can all look after ourselves physically if we want to go for a run, or if we want to go to the gym, or just do something.
And it's not rocket science at the end of the day. It's as simple as, like you say, getting out, go for a walk. I mean,
do something.
There's some magic spots around this town. You know, a lot of people are doing the goat track now, and there's hikes around.
How beautiful is Castle Hill in the morning? What a way to start the day.
Mate, if you get up there before sunrise and watch it up there, you're going to have a good day. Like,
exactly.
There's pretty much nothing.
You're releasing those endorphins.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Good for the mind, good for the soul.
Yeah. You're also a bit of a bike nut. You have a bike anymore or no?
No, I used to temporary Australian is what my mum used to say, and she still says actually, but my dad used to be in the drag racing bikes. One of my first bikes, I used to ride dirt bikes, and I decided I wanted to get into road bikes. I ended up buying an R1, that was my first bike, and I tell you what, it's something very powerful about it, having all the power in the world right there in your right hand. And I probably rode a little bit too quick when I owned that bike. And I ended up selling it because I don't think I was responsible enough as a young man to stay alive on that thing.
Made some poor choices along the way.
Made some poor choices. Well, I sold it before I come off it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then I had a CBR 1000 a couple of years later, and yeah, it was pretty much the same thing. Maybe when I turn 40, I'll have enough brains to ride it sensibly.
Adult responsibility, yeah. Yeah. What else was I going to touch on? Mainly, they're most of the things. I think. I
guess I got one thing I wanted to have a bit of a chat about, and you know, it's the North Queensland way of life. Now, we're seeing so many things taken away from us in North Queensland at the moment. So whether it's losing the drag strip here in Townsville, or you know, beaches being lost where people have been used to doing four-wheel driving and stuff like that. And what's happening is, everyone seems to be so outraged these days, whether it's a noise complaint, whether it's a dust complaint. You know, this was North Queensland, you know, 25 years ago, where we enjoyed this sort of stuff. If someone was riding a motorbike up the beach, it was just, oh, that's cool. Someone's riding a motorbike up the beach. Let's go and set up a barbecue down there and throw a line in the water. Have a couple of beers on the beach and enjoy it. Now, someone hears a motorbike ride up the beach, or, you know, down a dirt track behind their house, they're ringing the police. And I tell you what, the police don't want to hear that, but by law, and they're responsible to respond to those sorts of things. So I think we've started, as North Queenslanders, we've got to be a little bit more considerate to the North Queensland way of life. You know, we've got to share this space together. But in saying that too, I think the users of these outdoor spaces that we all moved up here or grew up here to enjoy need to be a little bit responsible about that too. So, you know, for example, we've had some problems around one of the rural areas where kids on motorbikes on a Sunday afternoon are, you know, annoying people on their bikes. Well, maybe just go slow past Mrs. Smith's house and don't do wheel stands and marble rings in front of her yard, and wait till you're away and out of sight, out of mind before you start having a bit of fun. If you want to go down the beach, go steady past the houses. Get down there where no one can see and have a bit of a good time, you know, where you're actually allowed to. But like I said, people complain, this is how things get shut down, and it comes from both sides. People have got to be more tolerant, but people have got to be more mindful of others too.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of modern culture in general. People are becoming a bit soft, a bit, what's the word, PC?
Yeah, political correct.
You know, like it's gone a bit mad.
Yeah.
In general, I don't know whether a lot of it comes from the fact of all the information that's now freely available over the US. You know, this transgender, and you can't call a man a he or a she, and all this sort of rubbish. It just seems crazy to me, and it's totally irrelevant to our way of life. You know,
well, it's, you know, if you want to identify a certain way, that's fine by me. You do whatever you like, whatever makes you happy, mate.
Yeah.
But don't push it onto me, and don't tell me what I can and can't do when it comes to language. We're about free speech. The party that I represent and the person I am believes in free speech. If you want to say something that doesn't come out and you know, is derogatory, or doesn't come out and, you know, it's not a personal attack, it's just, you know, talking normally and saying your views, you should be allowed to do that without prejudice and without attack.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair at all to label somebody that, I mean, I think the latest one I read was the he and the she debate. You can't use that. Now, that's what I was taught by a government school in Queensland when I went to school.
So we're actually about to introduce a new bill into the Parliament over the next month, which will protect, if it makes it through Parliament, because at the moment the two majors will try and shut this sort of stuff down, but we're the ones out there that are trying to protect this. Now, the bill we're trying to introduce into Parliament will protect people's rights to use, you know, gender-specific words.
Yeah.
We've had reports coming back from Queensland University students saying that they're actually being marked down in their assignments for using gender-specific words. Isn't that ludicrous?
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. How can that possibly affect a person's ability to you know, be good at their craft or their degree or their chosen profession, or how they describe something? That's especially when that's what they've been told from the first day they're at school. Oh. This is how you describe this, and this is how you describe that. That's a noun, that's a verb, and this is the English language. So,
well, I knew as soon as I found out there was something hanging off the front end of me, I was a boy. Yeah. And I haven't really tried to argue the fact since, eh?
The thing that baffles me is, you know, people get upset about the transgender thing.
Yep.
Well, that in itself, gender, that says that there's two genders, males and females.
Yep.
So if you're a transgender, you've changed from one to the other, which is fine if that's what you need to do. That's I've got no problem with that. But you can't then say that I don't want to be called that because it's science. You're male or you're female, and you.
It's just bloody confusing to everyone else, isn't
it? It's getting out of hand, mate. Yeah. It really is getting out of hand. So the idea that we can say and speak the way that needs to be.
It's an insidious disease that's getting into our society at the moment. We've got to protect that, and common sense. We should say common sense should prevail.
Yeah.
But common sense just isn't common anymore, and that's what's starting to worry me.
It's an old school thing, which shouldn't be. It should be taught in schools that, you know, there's a think for yourself, use your brain, and move forward. You know.
Exactly.
So anyway, that's we might wrap that up there, mate.
Hey, Scotty, absolute pleasure to catch up for you.
I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah.
When some more interesting shit happens around.
I ain't leaving North Queensland, mate. And I tell you what, I don't think State Parliament's going to get rid of me too soon either.
That's good. Yeah, we're lucky to have a bloke like you in our corner, you know, steering our little end of the world in the right
direction. Great state.
Yeah, it is. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
Good work, mate.